The docking clamps latched onto Drake Cassion's ship with a tired, metallic groan, like an animal giving up its last breath. Drake leaned back in the pilot's chair, staring at the cracked console light flickering stubbornly between red and yellow. He exhaled. Permission to breathe, he decided. Outside the viewport, Vale Orbital Market spun lazily, a colossal ring of steel and glass wrapped around a pale planet striped with silver clouds. Drake had not been here before, or at least, he did not remember. In his line of work, forgetting was common, and regrets were even more so. Stretching, he patted the bulkhead. Just supplies. No heroics, no mysterious strangers. In and out, he muttered to the ship. The ship responded by dripping coolant onto his boot. Drake sighed and grabbed his jacket, one with too many pockets and too little dignity. The docking platform was crowded, until it wasn't. As he stepped out, the voices around him softened, thinned, then vanished entirely, like someone had turned down the volume of reality. Guards in polished armor straightened. Merchants lowered their eyes. A ripple moved through the crowd, not panic, but expectation. Drake spun, already preparing an apology for being in the wrong place at the wrong time. That's when he saw her. She walked with unhurried certainty, each step measured, as though the station itself existed only to support her movement. Her armor was royal yet elegant, with faint energy lines pulsing like restrained heartbeats. Pale, flawless skin contrasted sharply with the dark metal beneath her feet. Her black hair fell in a single, smooth line down her back. Long ears swept gently backward, unmistakably alien and impossibly graceful. Her eyes locked onto him with such intensity that Drake briefly wondered if he had something on his face. She stopped a few steps away. Neither spoke. Drake cleared his throat. If this is about docking fees, I swear I was going to pay them. Her gaze did not soften. If anything, it sharpened. So, you came back, she said. Drake blinked. I get that a lot. One of those faces. Very returnable, he replied, forcing humor into a tense moment. You do not remember, she said, a statement that weighed heavier than she likely intended. That depends, Drake said. Are you going to accuse me of stealing a crown, crashing a moon, or breaking a heart? I'd like to know which apology to start with. A murmur ran through the guards. Drake raised his hands. Mostly joking, he added quickly. She studied him for another long moment, then made a subtle gesture. The guards stepped back, forming a corridor. Instinct screamed, trap, execution, or at least a very uncomfortable conversation. But he followed her anyway. Come with me, Drake Cassian, she said. You will not be harmed. That's exactly what people say before they harm me, he muttered, stepping forward. They walked through the station and boarded a shuttle. Outside the windows, the planet's pale surface spread beneath them. Towers floated, connected by beams of light. Technology hummed clean and precise, far beyond anything Drake had seen. The woman stood opposite him, posture flawless, hands folded, eyes calm but unyielding. So, Drake said after a silence he could no longer tolerate, I'm guessing you're important. I am Queen Ishara of Valith, she replied simply. Drake laughed, a short, startled sound. Right. Of course you are. And I'm the Emperor of Poor Life Choices. Her expression flickered, almost a smile. You used humor to hide discomfort before, she said quietly. Did I? He asked. Yes, she replied. The shuttle docked at a palace spire, a structure of light and terraces rising into the sky. Drake felt a strange pull in his chest, a memory edge that had been untouched for years. Ishara led him to an observation tower overlooking the city. 7 years ago, she said, voice calm. Your ship fell from the sky and burned across our lands. Drake frowned. I think I'd remember that. You did, she said softly. Once. He laughed, humor fading as curiosity and unease took its place. And now? You are here again, she said simply. Drake exhaled slowly. Okay. I'm going to need a careful explanation. Starting with how I survive. You already did, she replied. Drake's mind replayed the story she told him. The crash, the fire, the desperate repairs, the 3 days spent in wreckage, and the soldiers delayed by miles. He had shared rations, told exaggerated stories, built makeshift heating systems. Most importantly, he had spoken to her as an equal, argued with her, laughed with her, without knowing she was the princess. And when her soldiers finally arrived, Drake was unconscious. The decision was made quickly, Ishara explained. You had seen too much. Memory wipe. Drake froze. Full or partial? Targeted, she said. They took those 3 days. They took me. He exhaled, understanding at last. The man he remembered, the man who had survived, who had laughed and fallen, was a shadow in her mind. She had carried 7 years of memory alone. You ruled for 7 years, he said finally. All this time, remembering. Yes. And you returned, by chance or fate, or poor navigation, she said. The first few days of Drake Cashan's stay at the Valith Palace passed in a strange rhythm. He repaired devices no one dared touch, shared quiet meals with Queen Ishara, and learned that the palace did not merely house people, it watched them. Floors subtly shifted underfoot, walls displayed faint, streaming data, and doors seemed to anticipate their intentions. Drake called it living architecture. Ishara called it Valith efficiency. But efficiency did not equal peace. On the 4th day, a subtle tension rippled through the palace. Advisors whispered in corridors, guards moved with sharper precision, and even Ishara's calm composure carried an undercurrent of anticipation. Drake noticed it immediately. Something's brewing, he muttered to Ishara in the observation gallery, watching the city lights blink across the planet below. I can feel it in my gut. She tilted her head, long ears catching the light. The outer trade guilds are dissatisfied, she said. Your presence has complicated matters more than I expected. Drake frowned. Me. I just sit here. Look impressive. Accidentally fall in love with royalty. She allowed herself a small smile. Your existence alone has changed negotiations. They worry that decisions influenced by you might sway planetary policy. He whistled softly. Guess I always knew being me would come with consequences. Before Ishara could respond, a chime sounded, a sharp, urgent signal from the palace network. A holographic projection appeared in front of them, showing an image of a massive transport ship descending through Valith's atmosphere. Its hull was covered with symbols he did not recognize, and a faint pulse of energy surrounded it like a shield. What is that? Drake asked, leaning forward. That, Ishara said slowly, is the Ziran envoy. They are our neighbors, and long-time rivals. They claim to seek trade agreements, but I suspect, less friendly intentions. Drake studied the ship, noting its sleek, almost predatory design. Less friendly intentions. That's diplomatic, for they want to blow something up. She nodded. They underestimate us. But they underestimate you even more. Drake's eyebrows rose. Me? Yes, she said firmly. Your survival during the crash, the way you interacted with me, the guilds and rivals alike perceive you as a symbol. They believe a human's return signals either weakness or advantage. Depending on how they interpret it, they might act rashly. He leaned back, hands clasped behind his head. So, my charming face might trigger a war. Great. Guess I'm more important than I thought. Later that day, Drake was allowed into the council chambers, a room with a circular table and floating holographic maps. Ishara's advisors hovered around projections of planetary systems, trade routes, and Ziran territories. You must understand, Ishara said, addressing the room. Drake Cassian is not just a guest. He carries no political affiliation. He is human. A murmur ran through the council. One advisor, an older Valith with eyes sharp as crystals, stepped forward. Your Highness, with respect, a human in your court, unknown, unpredictable, poses a risk to stability. The Zirans may use him as leverage. Drake raised a hand. I assure you, I am fully aware of the danger I represent. I also fully plan to avoid responsibility. The room did not laugh. Still, another advisor said, his arrival coincides with reports of Ziran patrols near the border. We have intercepted communications suggesting intentions to claim resources that belong to Valith. Drake leaned closer to Ishara. They want what? The Auralese mines, she said. Rich in crystite, energy crystals critical to Valith power grids. The Zirans want them, and they believe a human's presence will distract or complicate our defenses. Drake rubbed his chin. So I'm a pawn, and also a target. You could be both, Ishara said evenly. That evening, Drake walked the palace terraces alone. The city lights glittered below, and ships moved like fireflies on invisible tracks. His mind raced. 7 years ago, he had crashed. Almost died. Survived by luck, skill, and stubbornness. And now he was tangled in politics he barely understood, as a human among aliens who ruled empires with precision and patience. He thought of Ishara, who had carried 7 years of memory alone. She had seen him as more than a survivor. She had remembered him. Every action, every joke, every mistake, etched into her memory while he wandered oblivious through the galaxy. And now, he had a choice. To step forward, or to run. A sudden alarm echoed through the palace, a low, vibrating hum, accompanied by a series of flashing lights. Drake's stomach tightened. Ziran vessel attempting an authorized breach, Ishara's voice called over the alert system. She appeared beside him instantly, armor gleaming, eyes sharp. They are testing our defenses. Possibly seeking to identify weaknesses. Drake smirked despite the tension. And you called me unpredictable. She ignored the comment. I need you with me, Drake. Not in battle, yet, but your presence is necessary. Necessary. Drake repeated. I fix machines, I annoy guilds, I survive crashes. Necessary sounds like something dangerous. It is, she said, eyes narrowing. But I trust you will not falter. At least, not completely. The following hours were a whirlwind. Drake was shown the Valith defense systems, orbital turrets, anti-intrusion shields, and automated drones humming along invisible paths. He was briefed on Ziran tactics, some centuries old, and how their ships could manipulate energy fields to bypass normal sensors. You understand any of this? Ishara asked, noticing his bewildered expression. Enough to be impressed, he said. Not enough to survive an actual attack. She smiled faintly. Then follow instructions. Night fell, and the Ziran ship approached Valith space. Its shields shimmered like a living organism, energy pulsing rhythmically. A communication beacon lit up the palace, projecting a holographic envoy of the Ziran commander. A tall, angular alien with grey skin and eyes that glowed faintly red. Ishara of Valith, it said, voice crisp and alien. We seek negotiation. Step aside, and the mines remain untouched. Resist, and we act. Ishara's posture remained flawless. You will negotiate as equals. No intimidation. Drake leaned toward her, whispering, or we get fireworks. Do not underestimate them, she whispered back. The council debated responses, but Ishara's eyes never left the holographic projection. Drake noticed the tension in her ears, a subtle sign of stress that only humans would likely miss. Then, a flicker of memory hit him, a shard from the crash 7 years ago. In the wreckage, a strange energy pulse had shimmered across the sky. He had barely survived. Now, facing the Ziran threat, he realized something. That crash, that survival, had prepared him more than he knew. Drake was assigned to accompany a Valith strike team to intercept the Ziran vessel. He did not expect combat, but he expected chaos. The shuttle carrying them streaked through the upper atmosphere, slipping past orbital patrols unnoticed. Drake gripped the controls as Ishara's voice guided them. Maintain formation. Avoid direct confrontation. Your task is observation and distraction. Drake's hands trembled slightly. Observation and distraction sounded like a polite way to say human shield. The Ziran ship appeared ahead, a dark silhouette against the stars, energy shields pulsing like a heartbeat. Drake noticed the smallest detail, a hatch at the lower port, barely visible through the energy field. Ishara, he whispered. I think I found their weak point. Her gaze met his. Explain. It's a small access port, he said. Probably a maintenance hatch. If we can, he trailed off, realizing the gravity of his words. One wrong move could trigger full-scale war. We will attempt it, Ishara said simply. Trust your instincts. You survived before. You can do it again. The team approached the port. Drake's pulse raced. He had survived a crash, a memory wipe, and political chaos. Now he faced the possibility of death again, this time by choice, not chance. He focused, recalling the improvisation, the calm amidst fire, the humor that had carried him through the worst moments. He pressed the control panel. Sparks flew. A small section of the Ziran shield flickered and opened. The Valith team slipped inside. Drake followed. Inside, the ship was vast and silent, corridors humming with alien technology. Drones hovered in patrol, but Drake noticed the patterns, slightly predictable, slightly overconfident. He led the team past them, whispering instructions. At the core of the ship, they found what they were looking for, the Auralese crystallite containers. The Ziran commander appeared suddenly, energy weapon raised. Human, it hissed. You should have stayed home. Drake raised his hands. Sorry, I have terrible timing. The battle was fast, precise, and brutal. Drake improvised traps, triggered energy pulses, and guided the Valith team with a combination of instinct and sheer luck. By the time the Zirans realized their mistake, their ship was disabled, their commander detained, and the Auralese mine safe. Back in the palace, Drake finally allowed himself to breathe. Ishara approached, her expression unreadable. You were reckless, she said softly. You were worried, he replied. Also, impressed. She allowed a small, rare smile. Yes. Drake laughed. Then I can survive anything, as long as you're watching. For the first time since his arrival, he felt fully alive. Not a survivor of accidents or erased memories, but a human who had faced impossible odds and emerged, perhaps, stronger than before. And somewhere deep inside, he knew this was only the beginning. For hours, they walked the palace corridors. Technology flowed beneath translucent walls. Floors reshaped themselves to support steps. Furniture absorbed clutter. The palace was alive. Drake learned its rules. Nothing stayed where he left it, everyone knew who he was, and Queen Ishara barely slept. They returned to the observation gallery, staring at distant stars. Silence stretched. He asked the questions he had avoided for years. Did I care for you, then? Romantically. She did not hesitate. You cared, she said. You did not name it. But you were human. You joked instead. Drake nodded. Humor, once his shield, now felt hollow. But she remained patient. He had a choice: restore the erased memories, relive the worst 3 days of his life, and risk emotional fallout, or remain himself, with only fragments of the past. I'm not restoring everything, he said later, in the pneumatic chamber, where memory reconstruction devices hummed softly. Not yet. Just enough to understand what I felt. She studied him. Unconventional. Consistent, he said. Worst case, I get a deeper appreciation for my poor taste in women. The console activated. Light bloomed softly around them. Drake braced himself. Ishara stood close, enough to feel her presence, not touch. No matter what you remember, she said quietly, you are free. Drake smiled. That's the first rule I ever liked. As the chamber hummed, the light faded gently. Drake felt the layers of his mind shift. Memories returned, not all at once, not fully, but enough to anchor his feelings to the woman beside him. She had carried the past alone. Now, he could choose what to carry forward. The following days were a delicate rhythm of discovery and politics. Drake was allowed into workshops, meals with Ishara, and tours of the city he had once crashed upon. He learned that power was a framework, not a destination, and that kindness could exist even in a queen's court. At night, he and Ishara returned to the observation tower. She measured every suitor against him. He winced. Yet she remained honest, patient, and kind. Drake realized that what he had once forgotten was not a moment but a person. He had fallen for her once, and now, given the chance to fall again, he would choose her properly. By the end of the first chapter, Drake understood 3 things. The palace was alive, memories were fragile, and Ishara was no longer just a princess in his past, but a queen in his present and possibly in his future. And for the first time, he was not afraid of what lay beyond the locked doors in his mind.